Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise. I'm Ayo Makinde. Well, as you can see, the sun has risen and Alero is not here this morning, but I can assure you that she has had her cocoa today. Have you had yours? A cup of cocoa, maybe? Well, I'm not having cocoa or cocoa this morning. I'm just getting myself a glass of water. Hope you had a good week. Yesterday was International Day of the Boy Child. And I was told by, the little tots in my house told me how they celebrated the boys. And the girls hid in pockets of corners in the classroom, and the boys came into the room, and when they were all in, they jumped out and said, "Happy International Boy Child Day, we love you." And I'm like, how many of the people watching me right now had that experience when they were growing up? Did you? Talk true. Tell me, come on, just be honest. Did you even know that there was such a day as International Day of the Boy Child when you were growing up? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm throwing jabs. I'm sorry. But it's always good to remember that. There is Mother's Day twice in the year. Some people are still carrying placard about that one. Don't mind them. There's, of course, the Day of the Child, of the Girl Child. And one of the campaigns that's been noised around quite a bit is that we pay so much attention to the girl child that we ignore the boy child most of the time, forgetting that if we do not take care of the boy child the way we are taking care of the girl child, the boy is going to get married to a girl that we have taken care of. So if we don't raise the boy right, well, guess what's going to happen in the life of the girl that we are raising right? So that attention is very, very critical for every one of us. It's important for us to pay attention to that. So that is something that I think we should celebrate. And by the way, talking about children, it was in the course of the week that we received that news that the professor in charge of JAM, the top dog at JAM, Professor Ishakoloede, took responsibility for all of the furore that happened, in the wake of the results of JAM that was released. And rightly so. And it's been greatly commended. Not just, he's an academic. So naturally you would expect, he could, just as I said earlier in the week, you could just have put out a statement and make the statement as emotive as it can be. But he came on camera, he read it. Maybe he didn't put the right intonation or emotional language or whatever. He's an academic. However, guess what? He was very emotional. And that was very, very moving. I'm still looking forward to an opportunity to interview him and find out exactly what was running through his mind. There are, stories here and there of how seriously the young people who wrote the exams have been traumatized by it. We hear that there was one of them that also committed suicide as a result of it. And even now, some are having to rewrite the exams and having collisions with their another examination that they were writing at the time. It's a whole lot. But then someone reminded me that about, I think in 1997, JAM at the time cancelled 95,000 results for whatever reason. So it's not something that is happening for the first time. But our population has since ballooned, so one can understand the challenges, the logistical challenges, the technological challenges that JAM would have. So how JAM comes out of this, I guess the hope is that JAM will come out stronger and better in the interest of our nation. And let me just drop this. I understand that women are complaining about the cost of gas. Guess what? I am hearing that cooking gas is now 15,000 naira for the regular 12.5 kilogram cooking gas that people are using. My counsel, my aspiration would be that government at various levels will come out and just let people know what's going on, because we've been talking about this gas alternative for donkey years. Now it's here, people are embracing it, and if it's way out of the reach of Nigerians, questions are going to continue to be asked. Now, we know that at some point the federal government had indicated that, look, let's price this thing local. Is this the local price of it? Or are there challenges that people don't understand? If people can't afford gas, we understand kerosene is probably even more costly. So if people can't afford the gas that we are expected to transit to, clean fuel, clean energy, as we say, we're expected to transit to, and this is the challenge we're having, someone needs to be talking to us. Communication, in my opinion, remains the way to go. Well, there are many other topics to talk about this morning, and they're listed on our menu. And so the first thing we'll be talking about is the technology and Nigeria war on terror. As the first on our lineup this morning of things that we'll be discussing. The second thing on the list would be minding the quality education gap. Definitely a concern. Definitely a concern. We talked about JAMB earlier, and guess what? Probably will come up again in our next conversation. Preparing your child for the wealth you have built is another conversation we'll be having. What is that all about? Well, don't wait too long. We're going to be there in no time. Mother Teresa Hospital is another conversation we'll be having later on. On lifestyle this morning, how do you measure your blood pressure accurately and control it to live longer? That conversation will happen on lifestyle. And our artist of the week, as Adara would say, let's just say it's a he. No, not a he-goat. I promise you, not a he-goat, but it's a guy. So please, do me a favor, grab your cup of cocoa or cocoa, whichever one works for you. I'll be right back to take on the issues for the day. Just stay with us. Well, the first conversation this morning borders on security, which, of course, we know that Nigeria has been talking about for a long time. And even now, we can confirm that the Nigerian government has spent a significant chunk of Nigeria's money to protect its cyberspace, including its telecommunication infrastructure and all, from terrorist attacks. Now, in addition, the government has given considerable attention to cyber crimes, terrorists' online financing and fundraising activities. But it seems that these efforts have in the past failed to recognize the threats presented by terrorist propaganda in the Nigerian cyberspace. And guess what? Cyberspace is increasingly becoming the platform to promote terrorism because it allows easy access to actors to disseminate information beyond geographic borders. The internet and social media, they create alternative realities for actors, audiences, and users are influenced by the information given to them by strangers, rightly or wrongly. Let's have conversations around these issues this morning with Dr. Sheyi Adetayo, who is a former Regional Vice President, ISIS International West and Central Africa Region. He's here with me in the studio. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Ayo.
Yeah. We also have Dr. Oludare Ogunlana, who is Professor of Cybersecurity and CEO, Ogun Security Research and Strategic Studies. He joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. He's joining us from Texas, as well as Dr. Oyewole Guinea, who is senior researcher, Bonn International Center for Conflict Studies. Of course, he joins us from Bonn in Germany. Thanks for joining us this morning, Doctor. Okay, let me begin with you, Dr. Adetayo. The major challenge that a number of people have is the same question, and we have spoken with you quite a number of times on this issue here. Are we dealing with the same threats, or it's something totally different?
Okay, thank you, Ayo. You see, threats are evolving, and those behind threats are looking for ways every day to circumvent procedures and the defenses have been put in place. So this is not different, and we've seen government in recent time trying to understand the enormity of the threat that is against this nation. If you see at the heights of the NSAS, a lot of activities happen in the cyberspace that governments weren't even prepared for, and it opened government eyes to how the dangers, it comes with its blessings and also the dangers. And if you allow it totally unregulated, then those who have the intention of creating insecurity or destabilizing the society will take advantage. And that's what we've seen. We've seen different apps, developing several mechanisms to detect fake news, detect posts or contents that that are inimical to their cyber community. And as they are developing this, those who want to use those spaces for inimic acts are trying to look at which one is with the least defenses or mechanism to checkmate them. So they have seen TikTok as the best platform for them to use now. Why? Because there are lots of gaps on TikTok's number one. If you look at the one we're talking about right now, majority of those who are sharing this negative contents or criminal contents are either using Arabic, using Hausa language, or Fufude, which is the Fulani language, as the ones that affect us in Nigeria. And if you look at the TikTok algorithm, they don't have that. They have that language limitations in terms of Fufude, in terms of Hausa language. So even their AI cannot detect when things are said using Hausa language and the Fufude. Secondly, they've also devised a way in which they misspell hashtags. And they also use, special characters to spell. Like if I want to write iron now and I try to use at to write the hey, that's a special character. Or four, yeah. So, and because of the way their, AI algorithms were developed, it will not easily pick that. And they're also using, trending songs to cover the internet. So it flows with trending hashtag. So by the time, their hashtag detection mechanism is not seeing what it's looking for, it will just easily pass.
Okay. Dr. Oglano, one of the questions on my head when we talk about these insecurity issues, particularly as it affects the cyberspace, one of the major questions in my head, Dr. Oglano, is, do you think we are approaching it the right way? Here is my reason. A huge population of the people who are vulnerable in the cyberspace are young people. Perhaps also some of the people being used to foment this insecurity in the cyberspace are young people as well. Do you think we have this understanding as a nation and are approaching it accordingly, or you think maybe we're good the way we are?
Thank you very much. Good morning from Texas. It's 18 minutes past 3 here. And thank you for the invitation once again. And good to see your face again. It's been a long time. I won in my doctoral research, nearly a decade ago, that the 21st century terrorists will migrate from desert to data stream, exploiting cyberspace as their most strategic weapon. And today, that prophecy has materialized, and we've seen Boko Haram and Islamic State, West African province known as ISWAP, are no longer confined to forests. They operate in hashtag, live stream, and encrypted channel, radicalizing youth and evading state control with chilling efficiency. So again, this conversation is long overdue, and we must just move from simply chasing insurgent in Sambisa forest to dismantling their digital sanctuary online. Before I go into what government is doing, again, as predicted in my dissertation over 10 years ago, Encountering Expansion and Organization of Terrorism in Cyberspace, that was published in 2016, I mentioned that, I argue that terrorists will harness anonymity, scalability, and global reach in cyberspace for propaganda, recruitment, financing, operational coordination, and so on and so forth. And since around 2015, we've seen Boko Haram and its offshoot, ISWAP, they've transitioned from crude videos to more sophisticated social media propaganda. And if you look at a recent report, they've confirmed that in April 2025, Boko Haram began using TikTok to live stream threats, showcase weapons and money, which of course they collected from ransom, and also calling for recruitment, videos that closely mimicking ISIS propaganda tactics, according to AFP. And this is not just tactical, it is strategic. Again, in April 2016, ISIS released propaganda document via their secure Telegram channel. They title it Media Operative. You are Mujahid. You are Mujahid too. And in that manner, one of the striking quote is, a gun can kill a heartbeat, but a camera can give a life to thousands of earth. So, and that reflects their evolved worldview, where camera, keyboard, and uploading button are weapons of psychological warfare. And that's what we've seen them doing. So, my colleague just mentioned the issue of TikTok. Recent intelligence reveal increase of use of TikTok, Telegram, and WhatsApp. And why? They are using that one to disseminate ideology, showcasing attack, to instill fear, and also signal strength to Nigerian government, recruiting youth with emotional, ideological, and economic messaging. So, what is government doing about that? So, if you look at this, it's a dangerous shift. TikTok favors emotional, viral content without verification, gamify violence, hijack hashtag, build peer influence, and so on and so forth.
It's the same reason, Dr. Gulana, that I asked the question around whether or not we are conscious of that demography, that age demography in our own approach to tackling the problem.
Here is the issue. Of course, Nigerian, we've made some progress. And again, as documented in my dissertation, state messaging lacks emotional resonance and is delivered without digital strategy or youth appeal. Not that they have not been doing something, the current government, they are making some effort, but insurgent leverage digital storytelling, religious framing, and high quality production to indoctrinate. And that's where theology and their idea comes together.
Okay.
Nigeria we don't have centralized digital center engagement like the US State Department of Global Engagement Center or EU Internet Referral Unit, both which proactively flag and remove extremist content. So that's what we need to do at this point in time. And I think I will talk more about that, my recommendation, as we move on.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Ogini, you have both researched online as well as traveled physically down into the country. Perhaps you want to help us get into the heads of some of the people who form in this trouble. My challenge remains the fact that the young population is extremely vulnerable, particularly in the very areas, in the north where some of these things are really, really, severe. It's worrisome. There is no doubt about it. But my own challenge, and I think Dr. Ogulano referenced it a bit, maybe you want to also speak to it. Have we even understood the way to tackle the cybersecurity war? Because it's not a war to be fought with guns. There are words fought with. It's a war fought with words, narratives, and all of that. So, what's your take?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Shane, and thank you, colleagues, for actually highlighting very important point. I just want to start from the practical point, as you always say, that you're going to defeat. The issue of the TikTok is just like an offshoot of what has been happening over the period of time, as stated by colleagues. If you look at, we need to open the Pandora box of who are actually on the TikToks. During this period, what we find out is a bit very different. Young people are the one behind it. This is very quite right. But which kind of young people? I don't want to mention community, but I can tell you we have few community In Yobe, we have few community. In Borno State, we have few community. In Adamawa State, some of those guys who create this account, they are just trader who actually have small shops, who sell fuel, who sell all sorts of things. These are the guys who actually are being used by ISWAP. I want to be very specific because when we say Boko Haram, we are not really solving the problem. ISWAP actually is the one that have more organized and sophisticated approach using Facebook to have training, using Facebook to even help people on how you can get drone, how you can access drone. This is very important point that we also have to talk about. And then when we talk about the use of drone, which also have to connect to how they are able to use technology to leverage, to actually improve their sophistication. If you can see in the recent period, there have been increase in drone attacks, not just only in the border of Nigeria. You will see in the Cameroon side. You will also see in Benin. If you go to places like Donnekona in Kebbi State, you cross over a few kilometers in a place called Malawi, which is our close border in Benin Republic. So a lot of this happened because there have been established channels between ISWAP, organized crime, and IC. So this is very important to highlight that most of the technology used right now, they are commercial and civilian drones. This is fair point. The second point is that they could not have done that without civilian support. So which means people who live in our cities, people who live in our close to the conflict area, they are much more supportive and they leverage their technology. If you want me to give you an example, I was interviewing a guy and told me, look, when we, for example, have a wound, we have a way of bringing people who are wounded who cannot be treated in the forest to a particular hospital in Adamawa State. I will not mention the name of the hospital, just to give you an example of how it works. So it's the same thing how they are able to leverage to access technology in Lagos to buy a few things. So this commercially used drone, commercially used for agriculture, for video and others, they convert it, and that is one point. As I'm talking to you right now, there's a connection between Houthis and Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab, which you know, operate in the East Africa. Naturally, Al-Shabaab is actually affiliated to Al-Qaeda group. So they are not actually work together, but in recent time, they continue to work together to expand their logistical network. And Al-Shabaab also have been visiting Sahel in the recent year. So what it means that this network will continue to expand. And there's now a need for the government to have a high turnover. It's very important to know that the government is trying to establish 4 satellites, which I think very important because even with the drone that we acquired recently from Turkey, which is a combat drone, if care is not taken, this armed group can hijack it, and that would be a very dangerous point for us.
Dr. Ogini, the issues, anyway, let me come to you, Dr. Adetayo. I know that Nigeria has the capacity to monitor or track, the digital the spectrum of the country. Is this intractable?
No, it is not. It all has to do with our ability to catch up with the growth in cyber threats. I think on Thursday, I was opportune to be at the Senate hearing on ICT and cyber security, and this was one of the major issues discussed. And for the first time, and let me also say this on it, for the first time, we're having chairman of both houses committee on ICT and cyber security are chaired by professionals in the business. So there is hope for us to get to where we're going, because we have professionals, senators, and House of Rep members that are high city guru that understand the problem. And if you look at the content of the deliberation, you will know that Senator Ashiru is vast in. So there is hope. And they are also trying to catch up, both with legislations and also with actions to support all the agencies that are going to be responsible, or they are responsible to cater for it. But at the same time, the people also need to support to help. One of the things that these things are, okay, from the government level is for them to develop AI-based monitoring system. Sorry, API-based monitoring system to ensure that they are able to pick all those things real time as they are putting it up there. The people also, we also have the responsibility of reporting when we see, not trying to join, trying to follow such groups. You see, accounts that are meant to propagate, especially the bandits are doing that right now. Those in the North Central, those in the Northwest, they are using TikTok, to further, and they are using it to recruit. You see, if you look at the Human Goals reports, gave series of instances where, bandit leaders are using TikTok to recruit, asking people to submit their account numbers to be given token, the same way influencers are doing direct to say, okay, time for giveaways. They're also doing giveaways on TikTok. I see lots of young people are submitting their bank accounts online to receive giveaway. And this shows that there are lots of ignorance on the part, and they're exploiting, illiteracy and poverty in those areas. So lots of people. You see young people also say, please, can you give me the contact? I want to join. It's a big,
I'm not sure you have quite answered my problem.
Okay.
If anything, you have even compounded the problem because, you've all, and it is one of the things that, security experts like you all on this platform have talked about. The fact that poverty is being exploited. In fact, the term that some people have used, that poverty has been weaponized. And then there are those who have also said that, look, none of these insecurity things will fester as much if, some influential people weren't, playing one way or the other in this space. But the question that I asked you is, don't we have some kind of war room where we can know, okay, because we know, for instance, in China, there are some things that can't be put out. Yeah. In Russia, there are some limitations to technology use. In North Korea, these things are there, simply because the nation can monitor these things. I want to believe that we have such kinds of monitoring apparatus as well. And we'll be able to track and say, okay, this is happening here, this is happening here, and we should track them and put an end to it.
It's all about leverage and control. You see, in China, TikTok came from China. And China, the way China is governed is such that there's some level of repression in China. Our own law does not allow that. And if we try to do that here, people will actually say, oh, we're preventing free speech and this. But those are part of the tools that they had to put in place, or they had to put in place, to force certain actions. TikTok is from China. That can be done. Russia is, the way Russia is. It's a socialist, communist, society for a long time. They have a way in which they control, and they are seen or tagged as, repressive country or a government that try to enforce certain things irrespective of what the law is saying outside of Russia. But in our own environment, remember when social media, Facebook and the rest, there was an action against it. There was an uproar. But something happened. An homegrown app came up. And people started going to that homegrown. If you allow a situation where we have our own homegrown, and where we can control, Nigerian law can easily. Why is TikTok having a problem in the US? Because US is concerned that all the information that TikTok is generating, the Chinese government are receiving it. And they are concerned that information relating to American citizens are easily being taken from TikTok. So they want a form of control on TikTok such that they can prevent TikTok from sharing, those information with the Chinese government. Now, do we have such leverage? Do we have such control? No. But there are ways in which gradually we are building that. Remember that, government now came up with regulation to say, you know what, for you to be able to operate in Nigeria, you must have offices in Nigeria. Open your office. We want to have, a face to this. And we saw even what happened with Binance. When, we discovered that Binance was being used, to actually, bring down, devaluate, I don't know the right word to use now, try to manipulate Naira at that particular time, and then we began to use. So there are lots of, there's a review, 2023 cybercrime laws. Those are also to ensure that, we put proper governance in our cyberspace to say, if you are doing this, this is how you will be treated. Now we have a law. We have laws to govern that. What is now left is enforcement and regulation, and that is where we're going right now.
So it goes back to the same question, and I'm glad you mentioned that the legislators are experts in the business.
Yeah.
Do you think it could come into consideration, particularly because of the future of the nation? Because if the young people are as vulnerable as they are now, and they can use technology the way they're using it, mostly out of ignorance, mostly because of poverty, the poverty that is being exploited, is it impossible for us to track the location of these bandits, particularly in the cyberspace? If it is possible, why are we not doing that?
Okay, there are lots of things. Number one, if you look at the volume, we have over 24 million Nigerians accounts on TikTok from Nigeria. The volume of contents that are coming out. I've seen the ISD research on this, and has to do with these Tarrant incidents, I think in the US or so. And in spite of that, there are still several videos showing people how to carry out that Christchurch attack on TikTok. Even the US government have not been able to bring them all down. Why? The people uploading it are using the gaps within the algorithm, detection algorithm, to evade detection. So it is about how much of investment are we making? Is it adequate? Do we need to do more? That is part of the conversation last week on on Thursday, to see what are those gaps? Where do we need to? The Senate and the House from the conversation are ready to say, let us understand where the problem is, so that when we're talking about budget consideration and it's coming, we know that investment has to go more into this. And I believe that there is this national security summit that is about to, and it's one of the reasons why they are holding, bringing experts, stakeholders to have that conversation. That by the time we're talking about when we get to national security summit now, it's not just going to be about ammo tanks or Tucano jets. We need to now focus on those ones we've not actually paid enough attention, because they are new threat and evolving threats. We now need to start looking at them to say, okay, if you're going to spend 10 naira, let's be able to budget 20 or 30 naira out of it into dealing with threats from the cyberspace, so that we can start building capacity and capabilities. And I know that we have, when it comes to individual human capital to tackle this, Nigeria has one of the best, biggest reservoir of intellect and intellectuals in the space. Okay. So when we have the right funding, we can be able to attract the right kind of people within Nigeria and start developing. But we should start looking at how to develop homegrown social hubs that can, cater for our need, and we can easily regulate.
Okay. Dr. Oglano, do you agree that, a homegrown solution would solve the problem? But if you agree with him, you can speak to that. But the question that I want to ask you is, what role do you see for the subnationals in this whole space? We hear that all insecurity or insecurity is local. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, he has also spoken about the capacity. Do you see a role or two for the states in this whole cybersecurity sphere?
Again, before I answer your question, I want to quickly make certain things straight. When Benjamin Franklin got into debate between liberty and security, and he said, whoever we give up freedom for security deserve neither. So we are not China, and I can tell you that there's a way we can chase terrorists out of the cyberspace, chase them out of their online sanctuary without violating people's fundamental human right, without breaking their privacy. We are facing the war of ideas. As I've mentioned earlier on, when you see ISWAP, or you call them Boko Haram, whatever you call them, when you see them, live streaming threat, pressing martyrdom, everything come from the ISIS manual. And again, it is where propaganda meets theology. And the manual stated this completely, that this one, whoever that incite is a mujahid. Steering others towards jihad and opening their eyes to it is jihad. And that is why today they will use TikTok, the same technology, which of course education, they said, okay, it's not good. They will use technology to do whatever, which of course they will do. Back to your question, we have Cybercrime Act of 2015, right? It has been in place, but the enforcement remains weak. And the Nigerian government has recently launched and deployed 130,000 armed forest guard also, in response to what is going on, which is commendable. So, but yes, what will be the role of the state? Well, in federal system, if I understand you very well, you're talking about the state, federal government and state government, right? Security is a responsibility of everyone. The FBI has been fighting terrorism since 1908, and they always make people to understand the fact that whether state, local, community, individual is the responsibility of everyone to get involved. So we are making progress. And again, I want to say this. In security, we have framework. We start with people, process, and the final piece of it is technology. Nigeria, we are very quick to talk about technology. We are very quick to talk about homegrown technology. And I'll give you an example. In this country, we use technology successfully to conduct local government election. We use it successfully to conduct state election. But when it comes to certain level, the technology fails, to work. And what I want to bring out is that technology fails when human beings are compromised. And we have to talk about that. We are facing war of ideas. We need credibility. There's something that our DSS cannot track. They can track everything. And in building capacity, even if you are talking about homegrown, we need collaboration. We cannot fight terrorists without collaboration, without international collaboration. We are talking about TikTok, we are talking about WhatsApp. These are cloud-based technology. I'm a professor of cybersecurity here, and those cloud, technology. So we need subpoena. We can work with some of those, which of course I know Nigerian government is doing. If Nigerian government want to do something, they will do it effectively. The only thing that I've seen in recent time is that instead of focusing on that, they would rather come to you speaking against government on the television or chasing activists speaking against government or chasing using that Cybercrime Act of 2015, chasing them. They have everything at their disposal. It's just a matter of political will. And I've seen some progress. I've seen Nuhu Ribadu is doing a lot of work underground. Just the fact that, the magnanimity of the problem, that is making it look as if they are not doing anything.
Okay.
We have war room, we have fusion center. As I've mentioned earlier on, we can integrate the DSS and also integrate civilian into the fusion center and bring experts and collaborate with the international community who, of course, have access to the intelligence. And we can bring down some of those propaganda down in real time. All this, we involve collaboration, not just issue of homegrown technology. Homegrown technology is not going to work in isolation. It's going to work on the internet. It's going to use server, and the server is going to be located everywhere. So we need collaboration to be able to do that. Okay. And I will talk more about that later.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Dr. Ogini, I think it's a good place for us to begin to talk solutions now. It's as you heard Dr. Ogunlano say, we've had this cybercrime law since 2015, and even added to that was an attempt to regulate social media in the past dispensation. So what are the options for us, in your opinion, Dr. Ogini, and what are the hurdles that must be crossed if we are to succeed?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I agree to what Dr. Ogulana just mentioned on the aspect of freedom and security. We can achieve that, and that's very important to state that both have to work hand in hand together. I want to first talk about the terrorist financing, which is also very important because without finance, they cannot also do what they are doing. First, if you remember when there was a change of currency, ISWAP changed its strategy and said, look, we don't even want to collect Naira anymore. Pay us in CFA, France CFA. So this is just to give you an example. It's the same thing. So the kidnapping aspect, for example, they collect the money with cash and others. There are other strategies to use. For example, we can also implant on the currency given to them, and that will track them wherever they are, and that can easily be done. That's not even a big problem to put something in the money and give to them, and then you track them. But they will not stay at that. Blockchain technology is a very important element that this armed group continue to use, and they leverage on, and they pay in cryptocurrency, and they're not going to use it in Nigeria. They can even get it elsewhere, whether in Cameroon, whether in UAE, whether in other places which accept that, and then they find civilians to transfer this money. So what am I saying here is that there are three things that we need to do. First, we need to talk about the regional strategy. When I mean regional, Nigeria cannot fight this challenge alone. They need to work and leverage the existing strategy that we have. We have African Convention on counterterrorism, on terrorism financing. The Lake Chad Basin, for example, need to develop a framework that will help them to counter the use of drone. They need to collaborate with other Sahelian states, even if they are not together. ECOWAS cannot operate in isolation in this case. They have to work with the Sahelian state. Stability of Sahelian state will actually ensure stability of Nigeria. So what it means is that we have to break the political impasse and actually work in collaboration, so that if we are fighting here, it doesn't come from the other hand. Because if we say we have blockchain and we develop technology to track these people, they can get it in charge. And it's easy. We have the porous border. They can get the financing. So we need to take this into consideration. The third point I want to mention is the aspect of poverty. As I said in my last discussion, those guys who are actually operating on the TikTok, many of them are not jobless. Some of them, they engage in trading, they engage in all sorts of things. They are even professional, just as we have professionals.
So they know their communities.
Yes. Yes, we have the professional senators. We also have professionals who work with these people, and they decentralize this process. And that is why it's easy. ISWAP will not hesitate to use anyone so far they collaborate. Just as is mentioned on the issue of Northwest, Lakurawa use bandits whenever they want it. They say, we kill you or you join us. So they use this approach. We have to put the young people at the center of technology. It is enough to have old people who don't have the technology savvy controlling our space. Young people need to be trained. We need to have them in large number to actually occupy our cyberspace. And this is very important in order not just only to attract them, but also to act in advance or think in advance, because young people, they actually have more skill in terms of tackling emerging issues. And this is what
well, thank you so much, Dr. Ogine. I sincerely hope someone is listening. Well, Dr. Adetayo, I hope you are taking notes. So that way you go for the next, Senate meeting or something. But, what's your take on all of these, particularly because, and I've said this over and over again, the young people of the 60s, what they had over their parents was education.
Yeah.
And with that, they were able to fight for Nigeria's independence. And today, of course, how many years after, all of us are still enjoying, that. They got into government because of their education. This day, this generation, the power the young people have over, the older people.
It's technology.
It's technology. So isn't it about time we begun to recognize that and deploy the young people to face the young people in the cyberspace in other parts of the world?
Well, I think, every day we're employing into the Nigerian civil service agencies. If you look at the recruitment requirement from age 18 to 25, these are young people. And though it took us a while before we understood the importance of technology and also internet in the scheme of things, but we've actually gone a long way in this.
So on the one hand, my apologies, on the one hand, it is one thing to recruit them. It's another thing for them to be able to do what they need to do. It's the civil service. I trained some young people, some, staff of a state government, and one of the issues that was raised with me was that, look, there are too many layers of approvals. And social media demands immediacy in response.
You see, I'm also going there. So I'm first answering the question of young people. Now, the second issue is the quality of the young people. That is one issue. But in our drive towards addressing these things, we need to understand one thing. The major tool for terrorism propaganda is information. Before the advent of internet, what they want is they use the media, as in the TV broadcasting channels, to create awareness and to push the ideology out. Now they found an easy way of doing it. Now we have young people, even give a 5-year-old TV remote or phone. He or she will even understand more than what you as a parent understand on that phone, because they easily walk around it. They are now living in a different world where alternative reality, is where they are living. So how much of these are we using as tool for recruitment now? I think that is one thing that we now need to put in our recruitment or employment tools, now to say this is also part of the criteria. It's not just about age. It's also about you being able to bring, understanding of, the reality of the young people into the work you are going to. If you look at the private sector, it's part of the understanding. You must be able to use certain tools before they can be able to employ you. Now, going back into this issue, they want to propagate the ideology. They've seen a valid ways or means of doing it. And the best way today is TikTok. How do we address it? It is very, very simple. From government level, individual level, and at international level. We've seen Facebook, Meta, going before the Senate, Congress in the US to answer questions. We need also to bring those people to Nigeria to come and answer questions. Number two, there's this we need to develop or get them to develop language-based AI moderation tools, such that Hausa language, Fulfulde, becomes languages that AI tools on TikTok must be able to understand. So it's us getting TikTok to say, okay, Facebook is doing already, where they can easily, translate. If you see they can easily translate. TikTok must, if we give TikTok between so period and so period, develop, a language-based moderation tool on Fulfulde on Hausa language, or else we'll probably block TikTok from operating in Nigeria. I'm sure TikTok will quickly come up with something, because we have one already in existence in other social app where they're doing. So which means that somebody has already done that in that language, it can easily be translated. We also need to also push it out to Nigerians to understand, using all available medium now, to say, when you see any of this content with evading hashtag, where they're using special characters to evade the algorithm tool, or they are misspelling, or they are using trending songs to cover it, please report it. This is where you should report it to, so that first report those content to the social hub, and also copy or hashtag this, so that government will also see it and they will also be able to address. If we are able to do all this and also engage, other international or foreign organizations that can help us also to address this, we'll be able to bring this in now.
Yeah, Dr. It sounds like you're saying that the people should not be doing the work that they
we both,
government for.
Okay, I'll give you an example. See, attacks, subversion, this is subversion, and also terrorism. Attacks happens at different levels, both at individual, at organization, and also at government level. We all have responsibilities. If somebody writes something against you, you are going to report, but you also have a responsibility to report that thing, because the phone is right there in your hand. The question,
I
am reporting this content.
The question anyone is going to ask you, Dr. Adetayo, is: we don't even trust government. We haven't trusted government in how many years, in how many decades? Now you're asking me to trust the same government with my security through my own phone. They didn't buy data for me. Let them go and do their jobs.
So why are we complaining then?
we're complaining because they are not doing their jobs.
No,
we're complaining because government is not doing their job.
We all have responsibility as individuals
but
to do our part. No,
I get your point, but I'm also saying that the average Nigerian out there has little trust for government, and government needs to build that trust first. Don't you agree?
At what point are we going to agree that government actually has the best interest of the people at heart? We see people, Nigerians right there in the Northeast, dying every day. They are also parts of government because they carry government ID, they carry weapons belonging to government. They are working under the directive of the government. So government is sending them there to do something. See, we need to actually, we need to have this reorientation about how we look at things. First, it's about you have a responsibility as a citizen of this country. Do your part. That's when you have that authority, that temerity to say, government, I have done my part as a citizen. You need to do your own part.
Well, you have some people are going to meet you in the cyberspace to take you up on this issue that you have discussed.
But if you look at an average American,
points, average
American, they will tackle it and they will not take government to account to say, we have done our own part, government should also do their own part.
That's not to say that they don't have their own issues with government.
Oh, sure.
Well, let me take 30 seconds each with Dr. Ogunlana and Dr. Ogini to your closing comments. Dr. Ogunlana, you go first.
Well, thank you very much. And Sheyi, let me tell you, as of this morning, there's no kind of language that AI cannot survey. Using NLP, machine learning tool, we can analyze jihadist lexicon, track their behavior, their behavioral trend, and also being able to preempt their digital radicalization campaign. And this is where your homegrown suggestion will come in. If there's anything that is missing, we can use. They can sit down and write the code and write the Python to be able to track whatever they want to track. And to Mr. Oyewole, I would not want to go into how the DSS, the Nigerian government security apparatus, how they are going to do their job, whether they want to put something in their money. But I know what they've not done. It's high time for them to establish National Cyber Counterterrorism Fusion Center, which of course we integrate DSS, military, cyber unit, police, cyber crime team, and also private sector analysts into that. And that mirror the framework like US Cyber Command and India NatGrid. And also, it's important to formalize takedown protocol with social media platform that I've suggested earlier on.
Dr. Ogunlana, I think you're already calling the government into a room to have a meeting. Maybe when you return.
Well, I'm just trying to say that because to dismantle this insurgent machinery, we're talking about, we must recognize that we are facing war of ideas.
Absolutely. It's a war of narratives that has been put out a number of times. Thank you so much. Dr. Ogini, your last 30 minutes, please, on this program today.
Thank you very much. I just want to say it's not enough to recruit young people. It's enough to give them a decision to make, to give them role to play. And this is very important. Don't just say we do cosmetic arrangement, we put them there. They really need to actually be equipped. It's the responsibility of the government to train these young people, give them opportunity to work, as Dr. Ogunlana said. They are the ones to work on the cyberspace, on the war room. They are the ones to work there. They know how that thing works, and they're going to do very well. I think it's important to do that. And I want to, at this point, also put the attention of government that it is also high time to operationalize regional strategy on drone technology, not just Nigeria alone. It's important and it's highly urgent. Otherwise, the military there, they are going to die because these guys are continuing to evolve and they actually have access to combat drone recently. We see that so it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oyewole Ogini, Senior Researcher, Bonn International Center for Conflict Studies. We've also had Dr. Oludare Ogunlana, Professor of Cybersecurity and CEO, Ogun Security Research and Strategic Services, who joined us from Texas at this time and live. And you've kept sleep away from your eyes. We thank you so much for the sacrifice you've made, as well as Dr. Sheyi Adetayo, who is a former Regional Vice President, ACC International, West and Central Africa region. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Well, now we know. The question is, where do we go from here? I guess government has its job cut out. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll talk education. Thank you for staying with us. In the most recent time, the past 1-2 weeks, JAM has been in the news and has been receiving a joint administration, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, has been at the receiving end of public criticism for the mass failure recorded and the glitches in the 2025 run of its Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME. Now, 2025 is not the first time JAM would be forced to annul results, and at scale. I mentioned earlier that in 1997, September 15 to be precise, JAM annulled 95,000 UTME results, having released 376,000. Then, the head of JAM, Bello Salim, said the results were cancelled after the candidates were involved in what they call massive, widespread cheating. He said the cheating involved impersonation and swapping of scripts. A year later, JAM celebrated its 20th anniversary, and there were reports of some Nigerians agitating that JAM should be scrapped. Well, it's all about the education quality gap. You know, in our next conversation with Dr. Abiola Awoshika Fakwetu, who is Rector, founding CEO of Olawonyi Awoshika School of Innovative Studies. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Dr. Adetola Salao, who is SA Education and Policy Formulation and Human Capital Development in Kwara State. He joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Salao.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let me begin with you, Prof. We've talked about this for so long. First of all, what was your initial response or reaction to the hula baloo about JAM?
Well, we were right in the middle of it.
Oh.
Because I happened to run a secondary school. So a lot of my kids were like, some of them cried all night, saying, this cannot be my result. So it touched me personally. And I had to go in and talk to them and advise them and encourage them that this is just a blimp in your life history when you tell it in the future. So don't think this is the end of the story. And whatever is going to happen with JAM, whether they're going to listen to us or they're not, you must make sure, that your heart is at peace. And we had to encourage the parents as well. So I felt it personally. But if you looked back at your archives, when JAM had, I think it was 12 years ago, and we were talking about, okay, let's scrap JAM and whatever. And I was a proponent of scrapping JAM at that time, that they have served their usefulness. But I'm going to, take a different stand this time, because I now understand why JAM is a necessity. Because we have a limited number of spaces for all these students that want to go into universities. So we need to manage that space. We need to make sure that it is, we put our best foot forward. That is what I believe JAM is there to do. We could say, go to the universities, show them your WAEC results, and, write applications and do all the fun things, that people do in other places. But this is Nigeria. This is where we found ourselves. When you start a university, you have a quota. So when all those quotas are added together, it only amounts to 700,000. Yes, 700,000. So when 2 million take JAM, sorry, we cannot take you, all of you, 2 million. We can only take 700,000.
In the universities?
Yes, sir.
All of the
Yes, sir.
universities?
So it's a gamble that I think I'm going to be one of that 700,000 that goes into university this year. And that is why JAM cannot, you cannot do JAM this year and say you keep your result till, for another 5 years. So what? You're keeping it for what? We don't have space for you. You have to come in every year and contest. But nobody tells us any of this stuff. Now, the crisis that happened back 12 years ago, when I was a proponent of the scrapping JAM, something similar is now happening, with JAM. Not, I mean, they've remitted, chunks of money, with which we all thought, oh wow, this is wonderful, because after 3 million, and then you now have 3 billion and 7 billion and then 9 billion, and I now found out that 2024 JAM generated 22 billion from these orphans and whomever would put their money in the bucket
To write JAM.
And they remitted 6 billion to the federal government. The federal government had initially given them a 4 billion grant. So why are we giving an organization that generates 22 billion a 4 billion grant?
Well, that's another conversation altogether, Prof.
No,
But I do get the point.
Yeah.
I do get the point.
Yeah. So my problem is, can we find a different way?
Okay. Let me ask Dr. Salau. I mean, she is both an educationist and a government official. So maybe you have answers that we don't have, Dr. Salau.
Well, I want to say good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
I miss you.
It's good to see
I
you.
wish I was in Lagos so I could give you a hug. It's been a long time, Prof.
Yes.
I respect Prof a lot. She's one of our warriors right there in the field, working really to create a future-ready populace among our students. I've actually done work with her. So when she says she's been working, she's discussing with the she's really there in the field, really doing God's work. Yes, I've been following the situation with JAM. And as somebody who took JAM exam, I actually felt a lot of pain for the students and the parents. I really did, because I remember what it felt like waiting and waiting for those results. And I have been reading on both sides of the equation, people who are calling for scrapping it, people who are saying let it stay. It has its uses. And I also went to school in the States. I've also taken the exams that we have there. I didn't take the SAT to go to college. I took the GRE for graduate school. So I understand about these exams and their needs. And as Prof, rightly said, the funnel is really narrow. We don't have enough spaces. In fact, one of the biggest things we need to start addressing is how do we take care of these students who are not able to get through the funnel to go into these higher institutions? That's another major discussion to have. But for now, of course, all of the hullabaloo around this situation with the tests and our students being able to deal with this emotional, it's an emotional, I have to call it trauma because there's no other word to use than that, what the students went through. And also remedying this situation about our CBT. In fact, I've been doing quite a lot of research about our CBT test, particularly for WAEC. And I wish now I had also done research when I was doing research about JAM, because JAM is another, I like to call those tests high-stake tests, because that's what they are, high-stake tests. It's like all or nothing, like Prof said. if our students don't make it, they have to wait a whole year, now take it again. Same thing with YA. So that I've always been interested in YA. That's one exam that is another major, what's the word? A gatekeeper. There you go. That's the word I like. Was the test, those exams.
My apologies. The reason that, this is becoming more interesting is, on the one hand, exam malpractice is not a new thing. On the other hand, it is an attempt to solve the exam it's an anti-malpractice measure, according to JAM, that is responsible for this this upset, so to speak. So, as a policy formulation expert and an official of government, how do you think this should be addressed?
When it comes to exam malpractice, I actually understand what they're doing and how they are trying to utilize. That's what I was getting to about research. How they are trying to utilize use the use of CBT to curb our students being able to cheat, because that's the real operative word here, being able to cheat and not being able to test their true ability, and also making sure that it's equitable, because access is at the key of all of it. We want John A to be able to not utilize measures that makes him have unfair advantages over maybe Mary or John. Maybe what other name do I have? Another guy. Maybe let's say D. That's the whole idea. They're trying to make sure that it's equitable. They're trying to make sure that access for everyone and it's fair. And that's what it should be. It should be fair. But unfortunately, there are also gaps with ICT, and that's what was trying to be addressed. I read the whole thing about the patch and how the patch was supposed to take care of making sure that computer A does not have the same B, and just making it fair. It really needs to be fair. As Prof said, I can't imagine being a student. I mean, I do remember. I said I took JAM. I do remember being a student and coming out and okay, this is how I believe I was science. This is how I believe I fared on physics. This is how I believe I fared on chemistry. I really am looking forward to, and that's what I want to hear more about, us being able to have immediate results and us being able to have a server where we can go back and be able to check through these results and be able to go back and address whatever, I know that's what we're getting to.
Okay.
Whatever gaps our students have. And that is really, really.
Now, to the students again, Prof. Thank you, Dr. Salau. To the students, there's something that you said that I really like. And I'm hearing that for the second time from a parent. So, a Nigerian university in one of the states in the Southwest wrote an exam. A Nigerian student in that university wrote an exam, got a particular result, and complained to the mom, this cannot be my result. I am better than this. And the mom said, indeed, my son is better than that. So somehow the guy, got persuaded by someone else, not the parent, to go complain to the school authority that this cannot be my exam, and called for a remark or something. And the thing was reviewed, and indeed, the guy got better marks than he got the previous time. And the first thing you said was to comfort the students and now take the matter to JAM. I think that perhaps there is a way to instill that in not just in private schools, but in public schools as well, to be able to query their lecturers, their teachers, the school authority, and say, this is not my mark. Would you call that another way of developing the human capital among the students?
Oh, absolutely. But you see, our background doesn't prepare us to do that. It takes a bold person to say, and a confident person to say, you know what, this is not my result. At home, you are asked to shut up. Go to your room. Don't, even in church, keep quiet. So we are not built to
challenge authority.
challenge authority. And so that is one thing that we need to build in. In fact, it was a primary thing that I try to instill in my students, to say, you know what, if you are confident, I mean, first of all, I teach them confidence. A lot of them, when I meet them in the hallway, I shake their hands and their hands are limp. And I said, no, come back, shake it again with, confidence. And then they quickly grab my hand. That is how we build confidence in these children. Anywhere in the world, when we go to America or we go to the United Kingdom, we are very passive and and as aggressive as Nigerians are. But when we get over there, it's like we just keep quiet. But the average American will challenge you and will tell you why this is not right. So something has to be especially done, and especially, like you said, in public schools, to give students the confidence that when you know you're right, then speak up. And don't be rude. Don't bad mouth your teachers or authority, but respectfully make your points known.
Okay. One of the issues that arose as a result of this jam issue is the fact that, on the one hand, there were technical glitches even on the laptops that some of them were using. On the other hand, some of them were seeing these laptops for the very first time. So, and add that to 20 million odd children out of school. A good number of people who wrote JAM were seeing the computers for the very first time, and they were supposed to write this same JAM or CBT within a regulated time. How do you think that should be addressed?
Well, I think that is the essence of the mock.
Okay.
They have a mock exam where they go in before the real JAM exam, to familiarize them, with.
But do you think one
Well,
mock?
no, it does not. It does. It does not. But at least it takes away the
initial fear.
The fear. If it's introduced to them. And again, we have to rethink our curriculum, and not in this sense that, okay, you have computer science or data analysis or whatever, and that's an exam you're going to take. But in how can you teach computers or data analysis without a computer? And so these are some of the things that we need to insist on. We just gloss over things, I mean, we have a curriculum, and it doesn't matter whether we are teaching it the right way. We just, at the end of the day, examine the students on what? So yes, even if it's just a few, let these students get a feel for, I mean, for us, it was a constant practice on the computer with CBT questions. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. Tomorrow, you come back, you sit down. This is how you do it. This is how you do it, so that they get familiar with it. But we can't say that for all of our public schools.
Okay. Leading to that, to the same question for you, Dr. Salau.
I was just even saying that's something that's very key that I needed to speak about,
okay,
which was digital literacy. But before I address digital literacy, because it's really, what Prof was alluding to before was critical thinking, that it needs to be developed for our students. And I like to call the word that, the word for the skill that she was addressing, the ability, is agency, being able to have our students be able to speak up for themselves and own their own learning. It's very key. And it comes down to being able to lead them to be critical thinkers. And I believe that's some of the things that I'm very, very passionate and very driven about us pushing for. And Prof knows that I'm very, very adamant STEM skills. And one of those STEM skills is critical being able to push and enable our students to have. And she's right. This will only happen through the revision of our curriculum. And this is something that she knows. When I was in Lagos State, we really drove and pushed. And now that I'm in Kwara, I'm also pushing for us to do, because it's really, really key. She's right. In the States, I mean, just yesterday, I'm at the UK. That's why I'm not there with who I'm from. We are at a conference, a roundtable with other African educators, leaders, commissioners, ministers, so different people, high commissioners, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Ghana, just to name it. And we went to a vocational school here, and we met 16 and 17-year-olds. And I was able to ask them questions about their learning, and they were able to answer me confidently about their learning and what they hope to do with it. I recorded a few of them because it was so inspiring, listening to how confident they were and how they were able to directly apply, okay, I'm learning this so that I can do this. This project I'm doing is going to do that. Critical thinking skills. It really encouraged me and reminded me that this is something that and we are trying to push through the revision of our curriculum there in Kwara and also infusing these key skills. Now, we're talking about CBT. Let me get back to the subject at hand. Digital literacy, I agree with Prof, is something that should be embedded through all the subjects. It shouldn't be just when they go and do computer science. No, no, no. If they're learning science, they should be taught to create PowerPoint presentations. That way they get very comfortable with using them. They should also start having tests on the computer in these various subjects so that they learn how to be timed, they learn how to get comfortable using the computers and thinking, learning how to time themselves. I think this is really, really, really critical. And this is why in Kwara State, since last year, we've been running a major digital literacy drive. We started with a pilot program. We're scaling up. Right now, as I'm here, speaking to people at Cambridge University, we're looking at how to even expand it even further. It's across the state, but even embed it in more schools, train more teachers. It is too important, as we can see from the debacle that has happened around this exam. It is very, very.
You know, Dr. Salau, I'm asking you more because you are a government official, and you invariably supervise public schools as well. Perhaps there is a need to understand the challenges that public schools or public schooling has in that regard. We spoke about insecurity earlier, and we know the issue of insecurity, particularly in the northern parts of the country. If they must use CBT, that means they have to learn at least some measure of the way, some length of the way, with using this same equipment. So how do we balance it in a way that on the one hand is the issue of security or a lack of it, on the other hand is this futuristic technology that they must adapt to, otherwise they will be left in the rut?
That's where making sure that there's equitable access for all these students and making sure that we create programs like this. And if there's schools, that's one thing I like that we were able to do when we were carrying out our pilot program. And even now in Kwara State, even if a school does not have the equipment or the place set up for that, what we do is we put it in a centralized location where students from other schools who are very, very excited and enthused are able to come in and plug into those. That's one way. And to be honest, another thing that I see that has really helped us and helped us last year, I have to be very, very frank about this, will be a PPP arrangement, a public-private partnership around. I'm going to actually put this out as a call to action. Those are people who have centers, who have programs around digital literacy, around things that have to do with digital skills, computers. Please look at it as a laudable legacy project that in your communities you want to empower, you want to equip these children, these youth ICT skills.
Okay.
The more of them who are able to do this, the better it is for us as a society at large.
Okay. Prof, you want to speak to that, particularly from the private sector perspective that she talked about, a PPP arrangement, because if we don't have students who learned on computers, as you have also said the other time, we can't question them with CBTs, can we?
No, we cannot. And that is, and I think some communities are already onto this PPP arrangement, where you look at the results as a community and you say, no, we're not happy. And so what do? They contribute. They find ways to, whether established CBT centers that, at least they're free most of the time, besides exam time. So we pay them and we take public students in our public schools to these centers and get them to use the computers, get them familiar with it. And so maybe more communities need to do that. There could be philanthropic organizations or philanthropic-minded people that will make sure that the public schools particularly, are exposed, especially when it's getting towards, exam time, so that, they practice. Even if, traditionally, the practice should have started in school, but because, the facilities are limited, they may not have that, because by the time, in fact, by the time a student is, his third term in GSS1, he or she should be able to make PowerPoint presentations, should be able to use Word, and we're talking, computer softwares right here.
Yeah. Do you think it's a good idea for senators and House of Representative members who have what they call constituency projects to
exactly.
also expand in that
Oh,
direction?
absolutely. And we just found out a day or two ago that nobody has a constituency project that is less than $1 billion. None of those people.
Every month.
Yes. So please, what are they using the money for?
Well, we'll have to ask them.
So we need some of that money in education. We need to equip our students. I mean, if we're going to, and I applaud JAM. If this debacle hadn't happened, this would have been a great way, to limit exam malpractices. It would have been a sweet, outcome. Unfortunately, this marred it all. But, we cannot relent. We have to keep on. When we do something and it doesn't go the way we want it, we double back and we do it again.
We have to thank you very much this morning for your time today, and hope that all of us have learned a thing or two from your expertise. After all, Dr. Salau says, you've been working together on this. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Abiola Awoshika-Fakwetu is the Rector and founding CEO, Olawoyin Awoshika School of Innovative Studies. And we've also had Dr. Adetola Salau, SA, Education, Policy Formulation and Human Capital Development in Kwara State. Thank you, Dr. Salau, for joining us as well.
Thank you.
Okay, when we return, we've talked about education, right? Talking about children. We're still talking about children when we return. Just stay with us. We thought that education was supposed to prepare children for the future. Well, yes. But how about preparing your children for wealth that you have built? Will education do that? Well, let's find out from two women joining us this morning from Meristem Trustees Limited. Damilola Hassan is here with us. She's the Managing Director, Meristem Trustees Limited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have Kemi Ojenike, who is the Chief Operating Officer, Meristem Family Office. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So, you are preparing children for wealth. Okay, so why is that a growing concern among successful families?
Yes, it's a growing concern because families over time have seen that the reality manifesting before them is very different from what their expectations were. I mean, the reality regarding how their children are embracing the family business, how their children are prepared, or what they thought was a certain level of preparation that their children had to step into certain roles. The reality before them is now very different from what those expectations are. So it is a major concern. You know, so many complexities in the family dynamics have also just revealed that without being intentional about this preparation, you can miss it. And if you have the opportunity to address, correct, structure while you're very much alive and well, you should take that opportunity.
I would have thought that education would address that. Or is it different from financial literacy? And I mean, what does true readiness for wealth look like in the next generation?
So education is usually a good start. But a good start because we're teaching technical skills, right? Academic skills. But the truth is that the reality what is needed to successfully build and sustain a business and even function in life and lead a wealthy life is more than what is taught in the classrooms. So you have a case where the parents have worked hard, giving their lives, blood, sweat, tears to build, right? And they have achieved significant success. But they typically assume that because the children have gone to school, they are well educated in the best global schools, they are equipped to manage that wealth. But what many times many families fail to pay attention to are the non-academic things required. For instance, the right mindset, interests, the strengths of that child, grit, right? Those practical things that you need to succeed in life. Those practical things you need to ensure that wealth does not overwhelm you. Because what ends up happening is that we have a case where a child has been living their lives, going to school, just living okay. And then they turn 20, 21, and then their parents pull them into a meeting with a lawyer and say, so it's time. I'm going to hand over this business to you. You are taking this over. Meanwhile, all they've known up until that time is that my father works hard, he makes money, he provides for our needs. My mother works hard, she's running a good business. And I kind of know what she's doing. But they're not really involved in the intricacies of it. So what usually happens is that they end up being overwhelmed or disinterested. Because right now, in today's world, globalization, many people have migrated. Many people do no longer live in Nigeria. They're no longer close to the businesses. So imagine calling those children who have established their own lives in another jurisdiction, asking them to take over. They simply are not interested, or they feel like they do not have what it takes to fill those big shoes. And so, like Damilola said, there's a disconnect between the expectation of the parents and the expectation of the children, and that breeds things like resentment, breaks down relationships, and so on and so forth.
It suggests then that there are some mistakes that families have made over time in communicating and managing inheritance.
Yeah.
Such as?
I mean, quite a number. Over time, people have made assumptions. They've assumed that the children are interested in your family business. They've assumed that the children would always be there, to take over. They've, just working on assumptions that you haven't taken time to really, really fact check, assuming that the children have the capacity and even capable of handling the wealth that you're handing over to them. Also, I like to say this on a cheeky note, that the assumption that we will live forever, so there are certain things that we need to do at certain times. If you don't do it, thinking that there's still time, it would lead to a mistake, because you need to take those decisions when you have the right frame of mind, when you can really put all of the facts before you, and you can take decisions, you know, without being in a hurry, or, you know, it's not circumstances forcing you to take those decisions. You know, another key mistake that families, patriarchs have made over time is, you know, this assumption that they know what the outcome will be, assumptions that our children are fine, they would always work together as one, there would be no rancor, we've trained them up in a certain way, so they would be good. You know, so many of those things, you know, they lead to the mistakes, because when you then realize that what you had assumed was going to be isn't what it is, you then begin to want to quickly, you know, take those steps, but sometimes it's a bit too late.
So, what would you say is the solution to some of these issues that you have raised in preparing children for the wealth that their parents built?
I mean, it's important that you have frank conversations as a family. Where are we headed as a family? What do we have? Sit with your beneficiaries. I don't just want to say children, or more often than not is the children. Sit with them, let them understand what it is that you have, what it requires, and get to hear from them. What do they think about all of those things? You know, don't assume that they want it, or they want to be a part of it. It's also important that we normalize sitting with professionals, you know, to handhold us along this journey. If you don't feel well, you know what to do. You go to your doctor. And you don't go to your doctor and begin to package what your symptoms are, simply because you need solutions. You need, you know, that problem solved. So identifying a professional, professional firms, of course, like Meristem, to handhold you along the journey is really, really very critical. Yeah.
Okay. I've had this kind of conversation with, you know, you guys from Meristem before. Perhaps for those who are wondering what we are discussing, we've heard conversations around trusts and all of that. So what exactly is a trust, and how does it protect family wealth?
Okay, simply put, a trust is a structure that allows you be very clear about what your intentions are for your family, and puts it in a form that will be implemented in your lifetime and after you're no longer in the picture. So typically, a trust offers a number of benefits where you have, say, the father or the mother who's the settlor, who say, this is specifically what I need to happen. These are some of the risks that I'm trying to avoid, right? I do not want conflict in my family. I do not want the significant assets we have to cause problems in the future. And I understand the key dynamics within my family. I know the risk areas, and I'm being very upfront with myself. So I want to create a structure where I appoint a trustee, usually preferably a professional, a corporate trustee that has a regulatory and fiduciary responsibility to do what I've said. I want to appoint them, give them clear instructions as to how to manage my assets for the benefit of my beneficiaries. And like Dami said, the beneficiary can be your children, your siblings, or whoever else it is. And so what these professionals do is that they create a structure that is outside of you.
Professionals being Meristem?
Yes.
Just to be clear.
Absolutely. We create a structure outside of you that minimizes that key man risk. And I'll give you an example. Usually, without this sort of structure, what has happened is that a wealthy man or woman, they've worked hard, they've acquired assets in their personal capacity. It is being held in their personal capacity. When they are no longer in the picture, there can be some conflicts, stressful processes. This is assuming they have no structure in place, where they have to go through probates, you know, and then the family has to determine how the assets will be administered. With a trust, that does not have to be the case. In your lifetime, you can see how things will play out. You can see how your wishes are implemented in real time. And then when you are no longer there, a trust allows that process to flow seamlessly. I mean, we've had many cases where just the proactiveness of families to put a trust structure in place has saved them unimaginable heartache.
So please, sorry, I know this is not one of the questions, but how does a trust play with a will?
Right, that's a great question, actually. So usually we advise that a will is a great starting point. A will.
Another starts.
So let me explain it this way. In your journey, right, when you're thinking of structures, a will is where you essentially say, this is what I have, this is how I want it to be distributed. But as you grow, as your asset base grows, as your needs grow, as your family expands, or when the complexities in your family are just more serious, a will may not be sufficient, because a will is simply distributive. It says, this is what I have, distribute it in this way. And there are very many limitations to it. There are also, some of the process of activating a will can be cumbersome. But with a trust, you have a bit more flexibility. Another key point is that a will takes effect after a person has passed on, not during their lifetime. But with a trust, you can set up a structure where it begins to run in your lifetime. You can see how it works. You can make adjustments as needed. It also gives you a lot of flexibility. You can decide that, okay, I want to distribute this asset. Well, I don't want to distribute. I want it to be managed. I want the proceeds to be used for a specific purpose. So allows you to do a lot more, and it can be tailored to the unique needs of your own family.
I wonder what the father of the prodigal son used. Anyway, don't answer that question.
To add to that, I mean, a trust also gives you privacy. So, I mean, once someone has passed and the will is lodged at the probate, you can write to the court to request, to see a copy of the will. But with a trust, your arrangement is very private. It's just between you, the settlor, your trustees, and of course, ultimately the beneficiaries. Another key thing is that with a trust, it allows you to face, how your beneficiaries come into wealth. And a key mistake that some people have made is to make wealth available at once. And then you have young adults come upon wealth at very early stage in life. And you can take that back to the prodigal son. If he had a phased approach to how he got the wealth, he probably wouldn't have squandered it. So allowing you to face how your beneficiaries get the benefits, and allowing you to just track their progress and match it with the level of asset that they're exposed to, the level of control that they get, it helps them to grow into that and, helps them to come up with the responsibility required, to do that.
It's a good one. So when is setting up a trust especially urgent or necessary?
Yeah, ideally, it shouldn't be an urgent. It should be you just having a sit down with yourself and, confronting your issues and then taking that decision. But, I mean, life happens. Sometimes it is triggered by, let's say, maybe a medical situation. You get a medical report, a terminal illness, and then you suddenly realize that I don't have as much time as I thought I had. Sometimes as well, it's just about you sitting down to look at the complexities of your family. You are a man with several wives, several children across from different women. As simple as your family tree can be and as complex as your family tree can be would determine the urgency with which you need to, quickly get to sit with us and have, okay, I said us, yes, and have these conversations, because you don't want, some people say, I'll be long gone, whatever it is they can do with what is left. It's your legacy. You have put in sweat, blood, you have built all of those things. Do you really, really want it to go to waste when you're no more? So because you don't want it to, and also because you may have people who are very much dependent on you. You may have vulnerable people within your circle of beneficiaries that you want to provide for. It's important that you quickly get to sit with your professionals and have these conversations. It doesn't matter what stage of life you are, just get it started and then build it up over time.
What does it take to start one? Someone is watching you now and is thinking, okay, these women are making sense. I want to take some action. What does the fellow need to do right now?
Literally one call. I would say that first sit with a professional, like Meristem trustees, like let's have a conversation, because like we mentioned, no two families are the same. So there's no boilerplate system. What your family's priorities and your priorities are might differ from that of mine. So the first thing you want to do is, first of all, decide. I could say that's the first thing. Decide that, okay, I'm ready to go on this journey. I'm ready to put this structure in place. That decision is important because depending on how simple or complex the system is, you may start and then you realize that, oh, there's a lot that needs to be done, and then you pull back. But it's important to decide. And then sit with a professional, like Meristem trustees, discuss what your goals are, and they will guide you through, or we will guide you through the step-by-step that you need. So usually what happens is after you sit with the professional, we understand your needs, we understand what you're trying to achieve, and then we'll be able to create those structures for you, go through a lot of comprehensive reviews and adjustments. And once that is done, it's that simple. You have a trust in place and we just begin to manage it.
Yeah. I mean, you can just simply send an email, trustees@meristemng.com, if I'm allowed to say that. And a simple email to say, I listened to you, Damilola, I would like to get started. Sometimes we just start by administering a questionnaire. Let's even understand where you are. And I've discovered that a lot of times people don't even have a very clear picture of where they are. How often have people taken time to document what their actual net worth is? Have you taken time to document what your assets are, what your liabilities are? What sort of title do you have on those assets? Some of the assets that you think are yours, they are in actual fact not yours, because it is the title that confers ownership. But when you boast of certain assets, and those assets are still in, I mean, like real estate, the assets are still in the name of the family that sold it to you, but they gave you one piece of paper and then you walked away thinking that, so we help you to even understand where you really are. And then we point out what you need to do. Perhaps you founded your company several years ago, and then because you needed more people to join you as shareholders, you distributed shares across siblings, cousins, and then in your mind you think, I'm the owner of this company. No, you're not. You are a part owner of that company. For anyone that you have given shares to, as long as there's no nominee agreement, there's so many things will help you to really see, and you can begin to then correct some of those mistakes. We'll just really hold you and help you to walk that path.
I know you have spoken to this earlier, but I'm going to ask it again for emphasis. How can trusts help prevent disputes and ensure fairness?
In the simplest way to understand it is structure. What a trust helps you to do is that it helps you prevent a situation where you're leaving many things to assumption, right? So when you have a structure in place, particularly when you know that the family dynamics are a bit complex and the possibility of conflict is high, a trust would help to minimize the occurrence of that conflict because you have put in place very specific guidelines as to what should happen. Bear in mind that a trustee is a registered, regulated professional that has very specific duties to you to implement your requirements as defined in that trust deed. So what that means is that even if conflict arises, there is a guiding structure that you have put in place that will not only protect your assets, but also your beneficiaries. And so it's a case where it's like you're building a house. And the trust is a strong foundation. Even when storms come, you can rest easy knowing that that house is protected. That's what a trust does for you. It's you not leaving anything to chance. It's you reducing the risk of conflict that can tear your family apart.
Okay. So can it be contested in court? Someone says, look, I have a will. That means the will nullifies everything else.
Okay, so...
I'm sorry, that's not part of the question.
Are you referring to the will now?
Yes, say, okay, someone says, okay, there's a trust, and the fellow, who set up the law, as you said,
yes,
has died, And of course, as you said, that the trustee is still active even beyond the person's death and all. And someone comes and says, look, this man, even though he had a trust, he also had a will. Which one takes precedence?
Okay, so the beauty of these tools, a will, a trust, is that they can work together. With a will, you are specifically saying that this asset that I own should be given to X, Y, Z. You are defining the asset and defining who gets it. With a trust, you have actually transferred that asset while you are alive to your trustees to administer for your beneficiaries now that you're alive and when you're no more. So technically speaking, whatever assets are held in trust are no longer your assets. So there's no basis for contention because those assets cease to be your assets at the point when you transferred to the trustee. So there are several structures around how these transfers are done and how documentation is done to ensure that the integrity of the entire process is secured.
Just a quick one. The email you gave the other time?
Yes, trustees@meristemng.com. TRUSTEES. Trustees@meristemng.com.
Okay. We have to thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Been speaking with Damilola Hassan, who is Managing Director, Meristem Trustees Limited, as well as Kemi Ojenike, Chief Operating Officer, Meristem Family Office. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
For your time. So when we return, it seems that we're just interested in talking about children today, but it's not just children that this one concerns. We'll be right back. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Now, it's World Hypertension Day, and it's just apt because the day helps, to talk about promoting increased awareness of high blood pressure and accuracy in blood pressure measurement, especially in low to middle income areas. Raised blood pressure is the biggest single contributing risk factor to global health. So we have with us here someone who knows what to talk about. Dr. Oyewale Kushimo is a consultant cardiologist, Lagos University Teaching Hospital. He's also coordinator in Lagos for the Nigerian Hypertension Society. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Perhaps we might begin with some maybe illusions that people have about hypertension, some misconceptions about, blood pressure and all of that you're aware of.
Okay. Well, first of all, some people feel that blood pressure is something that is there's a lot of denial. First of all, it's a bit difficult for people to first of all accept that they're hypertensive. A lot of times, when they get a blood pressure reading, they usually attribute it to, okay, I was stressed, I didn't sleep well, I didn't, I'm going through some challenges. So there's often that a lot of denial. They feel, look, it's not my reading, And there was even a patient of mine that, challenged me once, and when I got the blood pressure, I said, no, that it's not mine, that, she has already been to church, they've prayed for her, that this blood pressure reading is not my own, it doesn't belong to me. So that's one thing. Even though to be a word of caution is that also for blood pressure, for hypertension is actually persistent elevation of blood pressure. So it's true, sometimes you could have just a transient spike, that's why we usually confirm the diagnosis with repeated measurements to be sure it's persistent. But even in spite of that, some people, it's a bit difficult for some people to accept, and that's one. And then also, of course, one thing is that blood pressure in itself is a norm. It's everybody has a blood pressure. That's another misconception. They think BP is a disease. No, blood pressure is not a disease. Hypertension is a disease when that blood pressure is persistently elevated. So everybody has a blood pressure, and we expect that blood pressure to be, is when it's more than 140/90 persistently, then it becomes hypertension. Though ideally we want it to be around 120/130, but when it's persistently above 140, then it becomes a problem. So that's another misconception. Some people think blood pressure is abnormality. No, blood pressure is, everybody needs a blood pressure. Everybody has a blood pressure. But it's when it's persistently elevated, then it becomes a problem. And well, so I think that's one thing that I want to, disabuse people's minds of. And also another issue is, well, of course, blood pressure, it's something that is, it's a silent condition. That's also another misconception. Many people attribute their symptoms to blood pressure. They have back pain, they have headache, they check their blood pressure, it's high, then they think it's the blood pressure that's causing it. So that's another issue. For the vast majority of people, hypertension is asymptomatic. That's why oftentimes it's called the silent killer, because it can start causing damage for years, silently, without causing symptoms, and then people start having manifestations of the complications of hypertension. Well, high blood pressure on its, so for most people, of course, it can be very, very elevated. It can cause some symptoms, yes, when it becomes an emergency. Like you can get readings of 250 over 140, for instance, and in some people they can have symptoms. But for most people that have high blood pressure, it's actually asymptomatic. And so one misconception is a lot of people attribute all kinds of symptoms to high blood pressure. So oftentimes when we want you to check your blood pressure, we prefer checking your blood pressure when you're calm, when you're relaxed, when you're not under any distress, not when you just come back from the market, not when I'm not feeling well. Okay, there's always that instinct to check blood pressure when I'm not feeling well. Let me check my blood pressure. A lot of times that blood pressure may be elevated because of that distress that you're going through. So the blood pressure that we are very interested in is the calm blood pressure. You should check your blood pressure routinely, not because I'm feeling unwell, but because I want to know my readings, because blood pressure does not cause symptoms. So, but a lot of times people check their blood pressures when they have problems, and oftentimes that also leads to problems with diagnosis. So blood pressure checks something that should be routine, not when you're sick. It's actually when you're well, when you're calm. That is even the blood pressure we're interested in, not the blood pressure when I'm sweating, when I've just done exercise, when somebody has given me bad news. Oh, and I'm feeling, my team has lost. I'm watching my team has lost a football match, and then I'm going to check my blood pressure. Those readings are not representative of, So those are some misconceptions mistakes people make.
You said something the other time that, blood pressure, elevated blood pressure, consistent elevated blood pressure causes damage silently.
Yeah.
What kind of damage?
Okay. So it causes damage to various organs, in the body, and maybe I can go from top to bottom. Of course, starting from the head, it's one of the most important risk factors in our environment for stroke. It can lead to stroke, and then going further down, it can also affect the eyes. Even within the brain, over time, it can also increase your risk of having dementia in some people. Cognitive impairment, so dementia over time. People having memory loss and all that. And then also going to the chest, the heart, it can lead to a heart attack. It can one of the risk factors for having a heart attack. And also over time, it can cause the heart to start thickening, because once the blood pressure is high, it puts more strain on the heart muscles. The heart muscles begin to thicken, and then over time, that can lead to a condition called heart failure, where the heart is not pumping. The heart is a pump, so the heart stops to do the work it's meant to do. That is to pump blood to other parts of the body, and then that functions become compromised because of that affectation of the gradual damage of the heart muscle due to hypertension, which is called hypertensive heart disease. It can take years to develop, and over time it can lead to a condition where the heart is not pumping well, and then the person starts having swollen legs, swollen tummy, getting out of breath and all that. And then going further down, it can also affect the kidneys, and hypertension is one of the common major causes of renal failure, kidney failure, in our environment, together with diabetes, and hypertension is very important.
How does that happen, really?
Well, because, so the blood pressure, when the blood pressure is not well controlled, when it's persistently elevated, not well treated, so that puts strain on the kidney cells. So the kidneys, you have different units in the kidney, we call them nephrons, the kidney has different units, and these help to filter, waste from the blood. So the high pressure in the vessels puts pressure on these nephrons, we call them, these cells within the units within the kidney, and you start having reduction of these nephrons. Maybe you're born with millions of them. Over time, they start to reduce because the blood pressure tends to make them to decline in function, and you start losing those. So your kidney function starts to decline, and it takes time, over time, and then eventually it leads to a stage whereby you may even start needing to do dialysis. So that is why it's so having a blood pressure persistently elevated puts a lot of strain on the kidney, and you start having loss of kidney cells, and then over time your kidney function starts to decline, and over time it leads to kidney failure. But oftentimes, that's why when somebody has hypertension, when we make the diagnosis, we usually screen for all these things because complications may have started occurring. A lot of times when we detect hypertension, we're not sure when it started. It might have been there for 5 years, 10 years, we're not sure. So usually we screen the person, we check the heart, we check the kidney. So we always check their kidneys to see whether the kidney loss of function has already started. And if we are lucky, maybe it hasn't started. Okay, very good. That means we've caught the hypertension early. Over time, it has already gone by 50%. Some other times it will be by 75%. So our time it may be too late. Some people even come with already kidney failure and hypertension together. Maybe we've caught them too late. So that's and then obviously, so these are I think the commonest conditions.
Now, you've already spoken to the fact that people don't know, or some live in denial.
Yes.
What's the level of awareness in our environment about the challenge of elevated blood pressure?
Okay, so the level of awareness is quite poor, and oftentimes when we do screening, if you just go randomly to the public and public space and you screen people, oftentimes it's thought that about 1 in 3 adults are hypertensive, and then when you now find out these people who have hypertension, you'll find out that only a third of them actually are aware of their diagnosis. So you could see that. So the majority of people who you just detect have high blood pressure don't even know. They don't. Most people don't routinely check their blood pressure. So the majority of people who we screen on just random screen, not those that come to hospital, because those who we just go to the streets and then you just screen them, you find out that majority of people with hypertension actually are not aware of the condition. And this has been consistent finding. And a lot of screening is going on this World Hypertension Day all over the country. Spearheaded by many organizations, including the Nigerian Hypertension Society. We are doing communities outreach and screening in all 36 states of the Federation. And it's one of the things that we consistently find each year. You find out that many people that we screen, majority are not actually aware of their condition. And so first of all, people don't even know they have it. And obviously there's also ignorance about the complications and what can occur. But the most dangerous thing is that many people are not even checking, because if it's a condition that is silent, that doesn't cause symptoms, if you don't look out, if you don't check, you're not going to detect it. So yes, the level of awareness is quite poor, which is why we're having this discussion, so that we hope that after this program, people who have not, if you're not checking BP for several years, you go and check it. You should check it from time to time. And that's the only way to actually detect it early.
Absolutely. So the theme of the year is measure your blood pressure accurately, control it, live longer.
Yes.
What's the objective here?
Yeah, so it's very key. So starting with the first phrase, measure your blood pressure accurately. This has been, and this is a repeated theme, even for several years now, we've had this. Why? Because now there's a paradigm. The old paradigm for blood pressure used to be that, the blood pressure machine is something that you go to hospital to check. You go to the hospital and a doctor checks your blood pressure for you. But now, actually, what we advocate home blood pressure measurement. It's something both for people who don't have hypertension and those who have hypertension who need to monitor themselves. So all patients who are on drugs, who have that diagnosis, we encourage all of them to procure digital blood pressure screening blood pressure machines and to check it frequently. And this is very important because obviously, first of all, your home is your natural environment. Some people, when they come to the hospital, the blood pressure actually goes up. So we're actually very interested. And also, if you're checking it at home, imagine if you're coming. I usually advocate, oftentimes, if they're coming to see the doctor, if the appointment is approaching, we say, okay, maybe check it for 7 days preceding your appointment. That gives the doctor about 7 days readings. So it's more reflective. You have more data to work with. You can get an average rather than just checking it once while in a busy clinic. We've been there waiting for many hours, sweating and tired, and then you check that. So home blood pressure measurements globally now, even recognized by WHO and international bodies, there's a lot of emphasis on home blood pressure measurements. So because of that emphasis, now there's also an emphasis on checking it accurately. Because if you're going to the hospital, the doctor is taking the responsibility for it, or the nurse is checking it and is trained. Now, because we're encouraging people to check their blood pressure themselves, now we have to train people to check it properly. And there are many errors people make, which I would like to go through. So first of all, if you're checking your blood pressure, you need to make sure you have to be seated calmly and relaxed. your feet, 2 feet on the ground, not, and you should not be tense. You just relax. Your back should be, seated just the way I'm sitting, not inclined forward, because you have to be relaxed. Anytime, anything that causes tension in your body can affect your blood pressure.
What if
That's
the fellow decides to lie down?
Well, you could lie, but lying down, it's difficult to check it yourself if you're lying down, unless somebody checking it for you. So usually the most convenient thing is to check it, sit down. Since you're the one checking yourself, put it on the table. I would do it by your table. And a table, because you can put the machine. The machine should also be at the level of your heart. Your machine should not be on your lap, should not be on the floor. The machine has to be at the level of your heart. So just sit down, with probably by your dining table or so. And just the way they check it in the hospital, and put the machine there. The machine should be at the level of your heart. Another thing is that you shouldn't have done any excessive physical activity like exercise, gym, going to the gym, or having, in the preceding 30 minutes. And you shouldn't have done even any activity at all. Like maybe just going to collect the remote of your TV and sitting down. Not even that. You shouldn't have done anything for 5 minutes. You should have been sitting down calmly for at least 5 minutes before checking your blood pressure. So I usually tell people to, okay, maybe while you're watching TV or doing something, just after some time, they interrupt it, check the blood pressure. So you already sit down, you're already relaxed, and then you check your blood pressure. Not when you just come back from work, you're very tired, you just check it immediately, or you've come back from, jogging and you check it, that's so you have to keep that. And then also we encourage people to check it several times. Don't just check it once, check it like 2 or 3 times. And oftentimes, sometimes the first reading tends to be a bit higher. At times, you may ignore that and just focus on the second and the third reading. And so you take 3 readings at once. And then also make sure you avoid things like smoking or taking coffee also shortly before, 30 minutes to 1 hour before checking your blood pressure. And so these are things that people should, to keep in mind. Of course, there are ways of, putting it there. Usually you can go through the instructions on where to put the cuff and all that. So, well, these are just some tips that I would like to emphasize. So, because accurate measurements also helps us to know, so that we have readings that are reflective, not readings that are, and also, just like I said earlier, it's better to check it when you're calm. Don't wait for when I'm feeling pain, or when I have backache, or when I'm feeling sad, when I'm
having a headache.
When I'm having a headache. Those are not the times to check your blood pressure. Check it when you're calm, relaxed, and
Okay.
So that's
now, just by way of education, what are the causes of elevated blood pressure?
Okay. So, the causes of...
You see, I'm not using the word hypertension. I'm taking your advice.
Okay.
So, what are the causes of elevated blood pressure?
Okay. Well, but I would like to still, elevated blood, but I would still like to answer it as causes of hypertension, because that's really what we are, interested in. Elevated, and now actually, so the causes of elevated blood pressure, let me just say, or hypertension, yeah, because elevated blood pressure, to say elevated blood pressure can be caused, anybody can have elevated. If you go on the treadmill, for instance, your blood pressure is going to go up. So that's, activity, physical activity, emotional distress, and so many things that cause elevated blood. But that happens in everybody. What we are really interested in is persistently elevated blood pressure, which is hypertension, and that's what that causes, damage and all that. So this has, is multifactorial. There are multiple causes. But first of all, we have 2 types of hypertension. The hypertension that most people have is what we call the primary type or essential hypertension, where it's not due to a particular organ in the body that is damaged, like your kidney or hormonal imbalance. It's just the one that puts us have hypertension, and that's it. So that is usually caused by, we'll call them risk factors, because it's a multiple factors that come together. Sometimes we don't really know. People just have hypertension. It's very common, and you just have hypertension, and we can't really find, a cause. But obviously, there are things that put you at higher risk of having hypertension, and one is genetics for sure. Having a family history. If you're both parents, one of your parents is hypertensive, and even much more so if both your parents are hypertensive, your risk is even much higher.
So it can be an inheritance.
Yes, there's that predisposition. And of course, that doesn't mean that if your parents are hypertensive, it doesn't mean you will have it. As I said, it's an interplay of multiple factors. It just means that you're at higher risk and you should be more careful. So that's that. And obviously, also having increase in age, the older you get, that's why hypertension is commoner in those who are elderly, and then all that. So that's one. And then, what also very importantly is also the lifestyle factors, which is very important. Lifestyle factors. So, and these are multiple things. Just being obese, for instance, being overweight puts you at higher risk. Dietary indiscretion, having, eating foods, a lot of salt, high salt intake, is also puts you at higher risk. Sedentary, lifestyle, smoking, taking excessive alcohol intake, these can also, put you, at higher risk. And even chronic stress also, people who have a very high stressful, condition, not sleeping properly, these can, these together with your genetic predisposition can put you at higher risk of developing hypertension. But also some people also, even without all these risk factors, you can still have it.
You talked about lifestyle choices. You also talked about the kind of things that people eat as being responsible for it. A good number of people have talked about salt. Help us understand how that works.
Okay. All right. So now salt, because what salt does, salt has a function in the body. What salt, when we increase when we have a high, salt intake, it can actually, raise, your blood pressure, and so that is a well-known and documented thing. So therefore, what that now means is that obviously if somebody has that tendency, predisposition to have high blood pressure, and of course you take a lot of very salty food, processed food, and all that, that can contribute to building to your blood pressure being increased. So such that we advocate that if you now moderate your salt intake, that can potentially, one, if you have very mild hypertension, it could even actually reduce the need for you to start medications. In some people who are already taking medications, it can reduce the number of drugs you need to take, or it can make your drugs to work better. Because salt, as a substance, it helps to, it actually, salt and water go together. So when you take a lot of salt, then you tend to accumulate more, your blood volume goes up, and then that also increases your blood pressure. So that is one thing. So we usually we advise people to, to monitor their salt intake. First of all, don't the habit of adding salt to food. Once salt comes in, you start, there's that instinct to just add, So to refrain from that. So we just, avoid adding salt to your food. And then salt can be added, of course, at the point of cooking, but in moderate amounts. We usually will advocate, okay, like a 1 teaspoon of salt, level teaspoon. That should be the salt for the day. It's tough for many people, but that is what has been shown to have, But generally, most people take much more than that, and many times, you take processed food, fast food, you add salt. So there's a lot. So we take a lot of times much more than this. It takes some time, takes some training, but people, it's just something, an awareness that we want people to be aware. And with time, your taste buds get used to it. So reducing, because a lot is a habit forming. Over time, you start reducing. With time, you get used to taking a food with low salt intake.
So when you talked about lifestyle changes that are essential, what are some of these lifestyle changes that are essential? And that's one. Secondly, maybe you want to answer that one, because I want to ask about is it possible to totally reverse the symptoms of hypertension? But what are the to that first question?
Okay, so yes, the lifestyle things first, for what we're talking about, healthy diets, moderate, to moderate, avoid excessive salt intake, to increase your fruits and vegetables in your diet, because these are rich in potassium, and potassium helps to actually lower blood pressure. We want people to also, of course, avoid excessive taking refined sugars, and of course avoid smoking. And to reduce that. To if you don't take alcohol, of course, avoid it. If alcohol is very important for you, then in moderate amounts. So these are, and then to be active, very important. Many people, especially now, of course, post-COVID, a lot of people now work from home. They start, and then so people should keep that in mind, especially those who work from home, those who have sedentary jobs, that they need to stay active, take breaks, go around, walk around. And I think actually, because of this, coming this morning on Saturday mornings in many environments, I actually see a lot of people, doing workouts. The gyms are springing up and down. So I think this culture is actually increasing, and I think we need to encourage it more. But but this is for everybody, because probably those who are a bit more affluent, a bit more enlightened, are the ones that tend to do this more. But I think even those who have low socioeconomic means, we have to enlighten them that they also need to, not just somebody's a roadside petty trader, can be there sitting the whole day, just selling things and not doing. So everybody needs to be active, avoid that sedentariness, and to take breaks. To for instance, if one is coming back from work, maybe stop 1 or 2 bus stops before and then trek back. Those are inventive means. Even if you are very busy, you can always find time to, to have that, to walk. So we also advise exercise is also very good. All forms of exercise are quite different forms of exercise are helpful. Walking, jogging, swimming, playing football. And then some people, okay, they can't really engage in sports and all. Okay, fine, brisk walking. Doing that at least 30 minutes every day for 5 days in a week, for instance. 150 minutes in a week. That is what the WHO recommended exercise that helps to for cardiovascular health and to also to delay to help to controlling blood pressure. So these are things. So I would say eat well, be active, and avoid indiscreet avoid harmful things like smoking, alcohol, and excessive alcohol intake. These are the things that are advocated. And then for the reversal, you said
okay. How about water intake? How does it have any effects?
Well, no, I think people should just drink enough water. Don't be dehydrated. Avoid dehydration or take water. I've known people there are many things you see online. Where you take water in the morning, take water in the night, take water, wake up. Well, these things. Well, I don't think we have clear science. Well, that's not my area. I practice orthodox medicine. But I would say, look, people should just drink enough water and don't avoid dehydration. I think that's more important. Whether it's cold or warm or whatever, take whatever water you like, but avoid dehydration. Take enough water and all that.
Okay. The reversal. Is it possible for someone to say, okay, after all these things that you have advised me to do, I can get to a point where I never take blood pressure medications again?
I would say for majority of people, hypertension is a lifelong affair. So I'll just be frank about that. Now, some people who have mild hypertension, by mild hypertension I mean just their blood pressure is just mildly elevated, maybe just slightly above, at 140/90, just very mild hypertension. For those sort of people, yes, they could with lifestyle measures only, because lifestyle measures don't dramatically reduce blood pressure. They only reduce it by by a few, millimeters of mercury by a limited amount. So if your blood pressure is mild, you could actually convert it from being mild hypertensive to a normal blood pressure just with lifestyle, measures alone, and keep it like that. That is possible. But in those people who have moderate to severe hypertension, most of the time you need medications plus lifestyle to actually get it under control. And for such people, they need to be on medications for many people, really for the rest of their lives. And people should just know this, because why it's difficult for people to take drugs when they're not having symptoms. The reason is because we don't want to have renal failure, we don't want to have kidney failure, heart attack, stroke. That's why you're taking those medications. So that's why I usually counsel people that look, just to understand the reason is not to solve that headache that you think is causing your BP. It's not to make you feel better. No, it's to make you avoid the complications of hypertension. So when people are educated and they understand this, then it helps, because sometimes they feel medicine should be taken for illness. I should take drugs when I'm feeling, but I don't have any. Why should I be taking medication? It's because we don't want to have the complications of hypertension. That's why you're on medication. So I would say for some people, it could be kept under control without medication. But for the vast majority of people, it can be managed, treated, and once you can, with drugs and lifestyle, with medications and lifestyle, and keeping it within the control range, you can have a life expectancy like a normal person, like the rest of the population without hypertension. That's what we want to achieve. And so that's what we want to enlighten people. And people should be encouraged that so millions of people all over the world are hypertensive and they're also taking. So you're not the only one. Some people think that it's like as if they have cancer. When you say hypertension diagnosis is like no. People should realize that it's a condition. It's not a cancer. You're a normal person. It's just that we're trying to prevent you. You have a risk factor that can lead to damage in the future, and we're trying to control it. So people should be encouraged and not feel bad that they have hypertension.
Okay, is it also a concern among young people? Okay, maybe the way to put it would be, are young people also at risk? I hear now that we have young people who are depressed as young as 10. I'm wondering, are you paying school fees? So is it something that young people should also be concerned about?
Yes, because we are seeing an increasing amount of young people coming down with hypertension. Now, of course, first of all, even before now, hypertension is something that can occur at any age. even in children. And in children, it tends to due to be the secondary type. When they have problems with a congenital, a defect in their organ systems, they can have high blood pressure. But even the hypertension that I told there is a common that usually occurs in adulthood, the primary hypertension. We're even beginning to see this even in younger people in their 20s, even their late teens, early 20s,
having high blood pressure.
Having high blood pressure. It's coming because this lifestyle changes, as I said, is now, people are, of course, a lot of fast food, a lot of obesity is also on the rise. And so these lifestyle indiscretions are rising. And when that rise in the population, then it starts and we start having high blood pressure at a younger age. And of course, if their parents are also hypertensive, then, and a lot of times people who have both parents being hypertensive, you can also have it at an earlier age than expected. So a lot of times people in their 20s, because both of their parents are hypertensive, this can also with lifestyle indiscretion, they can develop hypertension. So we are seeing increasing amounts, and it's a global thing. And also in Nigeria, in this environment, we are seeing younger people because of obesity on the rise, because of dietary indiscretion, because of these things. So we are seeing high. So young people should also be on the lookout. And that's why we're having this. So people should realize that it's not just something you shouldn't wait till you're 60 years old before you start checking your blood pressure. You should actually start on time.
We have to thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Oyewolu Kushimo is a consultant cardiologist, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and also Lagos State Coordinator, Nigerian Hypertension Society, talking to us on World Hypertension Day about measuring your blood pressure accurately, controlling it, in order for you to live longer. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Truly appreciate
for
it.
the invitation.
Now, when we return, it is time for us to take you on what Alero would call a home stretch. Do stay with us. Artist of the week is Fred Otite, and he's here with me in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Also known as Dr. Frick, ethical comedian, corporate compare, fantastic and energetic event host, etc., etc. How have you been?
Very well, thank you, sir.
Where have you been? So please don't tell me you also studied veterinary medicine and you now ended up in comedy.
No, not at all. The doctor in my name is from my childhood ambition.
Okay.
But the construct of our nation sometimes affects how things turn out for you. So the nation doctored my medical aspirations. And at the end of the day, here I am.
Okay, so what did you...
I'm now a doctor of laughter.
So what did you study initially?
So I studied something related. I studied biology.
Okay.
Yes, just so I could understand human beings a little more.
Okay.
So that I'll know how to deal with them.
Okay, so, but you know how to deal with them now?
By the special grace of God, I can.
So we are still in the space.
So I'm still, okay.
So for how long have you been on this?
First time ever on stage was 2002. Yes, but that was me rapping, not doing comedy.
Okay.
So 2003, I saw that the need for comedy was more than the need for rhymes and poetry. So I said, okay, let's go this route.
How did you decode that?
Yeah, because naturally, all through high school, I didn't know anything about comedy, but I just knew that if you fell into my trap, I would yap the living daylight out of you. Mm-hmm. So I always had words that would describe people in a hilarious way, and it got people laughing. It wasn't constructive at all. It was always negative. I was always picking on people, and I didn't even know how to fight. So my mouth would put me in trouble, my feet would bail me out. But over time, I saw that, okay, if I could make people laugh, I could be constructive about it. Okay. And then I discovered there was something called purpose. Introducing purpose to comedy then helped me refine. And that was how the journey started, and here we are.
So since 2003, you've been doing the comedy bits?
Yes.
And how has it been?
To the glory of God, it's been beneficial, paying the bills, taking care of my family and it's helped me build relationships. So
2002, that's 23 years ago?
Yes.
Wow.
22 comically.
22
Yeah.
in comedy.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Now, one of the things that a number of people have said about comedy is that it's become so saturated now. So many people in the industry. Do you agree with that?
The industry is saturated. The art is not. Because if you don't have it, you don't have it. If you have it, you have it. So the industry is saturated because people are trying to survive. And I don't think it's peculiar to the comedy industry alone. There are different industries that are saturated with mediocres, non-professionals, just attaching themselves for survival. And can you blame them? It's better than wanting to steal, even though there is a bit of, intellectual theft at the end of the day in our space. But yeah, we have a lot of people in it. But at the end of the day, building legitimacy is solely based on substance. It's based on quality.
Okay. Now, there are those who, but the entry bar is so low. Just about anyone can
You
jump
can sneak in from any
anytime.
angle. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see that as a problem?
It is a big problem, but I won't be the one to highlight it because I don't like to highlight problems I can't prefer solutions to. So I still don't know how to solve that problem, but it is because there is nobody professionally, there is no censorship, there is no schooling formally. So anybody can stand up and claim to be a stand-up comedian or a skit maker because they have access to a phone and data. So you can't weed the chaff away from the wheat. You just have to now choose. And because it's a subjective art, what you find funny, I may not find funny. So you can't say someone is not funny at all because they're not funny to you. It will look like you're judging them. So at the end of the day, everybody is welcome. The game will select its players at the end of the day.
Interesting. The game will select its players. Nice one. Nice way to put it. But you said something about training.
Yes, sir.
Right? Do you see it as a need? Do you see a need for people to have a kind of system to hone their skills properly so that they don't insult your industry, so to speak?
Yes, sir. Training is very important in every field because skill is raw. Skill is just basically what you do constantly because you have the gift. So a bit of experience lacing your gift is just skill. But without proper training, you won't be able to tailor it to purpose. And you won't be able to meet certain needs, even though you might be able to meet some.
Okay.
For instance, a lot of people will say, I'd rather have a corporate host for my event because I don't want a comedian that will take it too far.
Okay.
That does not know
just
what
one second. Let me just quickly put this information out that we're transiting to a live event now, particularly and exclusively for the DSTV audience. Of course, other platforms are still very much active. The Bauchi state government is launching the construction of an oil and gas academy in Al Kaleri local government area of Bauchi State, and it's happening, of course, at the oil and gas permanent site in Al Kaleri today. So we're taking you there now for that live broadcast for our DSTV audience only, but of course, other platforms are still quite active. Now, so people choose the platforms that they want to go to, right?
Yes.
They choose the persons that they want to, work with.
Yes.
That is what you're talking about. But what if someone has a skill? Okay, maybe I should ask, where is the place of mentoring in all this? Do you see? Does it happen? Do you have that kind of experience in
Yes,
your
sir.
23 years?
So I started and I had to find my foot in myself. I didn't have access to mentorship or anything. I was just trying to be more like a pace setter, just get things done. And I had a number of guys look up to me. But growing, I started meeting people, building relationships. I don't know if I can mention some names.
Go, of course.
Yeah, so I met the likes of ONG, Lekpashos Bosse, Omo Baba, Benga De Inca, and then Ali Baba, you know, the Grand Comedian of the Federal Republic, and, you know, all these people I met through Dr. Smile. And I started seeing that there is a business side to this, which I lacked all through before I met them. I started seeing that there is a corporate side that attracts the actual business. So I started refining myself. All this is due to mentorship. Mentorship will fetch you not just platforms, it will fetch you network. It will help, it's a leverage that will help you scale a lot of difficulties that you would naturally have been the one to face. So mentorship is extremely important. Extremely important. It's unfortunate that Gen Zs don't really see it that way because they have bigger platforms now.
Oh, really?
Social media. We, the analogous ones, you had to perform in different places and might not even have the records. So they have to see you here, and see you here. But now they can see you once. And that's it for you. So, but I would still say mentorship is key, is extremely important.
Now, in developing the industry, because we see comedians in other parts of the world as well, and some of them have been able to put themselves in certain, you know, dockets. In organizing, if I can use the term, the industry, if you had to, I mean, you spent more than 20 years in the industry, so you are getting closer to what they would call veteran. Okay?
My guys call me that, but I really don't think it's about what you're called.
Yeah, you don't feel like
what
it.
you do.
Yes, you don't feel like it, and you're not it are two different things.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had to make a recommendation about structuring the industry, or rather this segment of the entertainment industry, for durability, what would be your recommendations, particularly in the area of mentoring?
All right. So there is a class thing that has been there. I don't know if it started subconsciously, but it's highly believed in now, which is A-list, B-list, C-list, upcoming. Now, that's just a social and business stratification based on how well-known you are or what you earn and all of that, pedigree across social media and all of that. But my recommendation would be that let everyone who is willing, because willingness is key, let everyone who is willing to build this career and build legitimacy in it, let them go to who they are attracted to, whose style they like, in delivery, in thought process, in dressing or appearance, in character and value system. Go to such a person, let them mentor you. You can see them as who you want to become. So let them show you how they became who they are. By showing you, it will help you learn faster. So it is not an imposition of this person is a senior, learn from him. It is these are varieties of seniors. This is an ethical comedian. This is a person that delivers clean content. You love clean content, go to him. This person is profane or vulgar. That is your inclination. Go to him. Everybody has their market. Everybody has their market.
Okay. Now, what are some of the challenges you encountered in this, that you have encountered and you have outgrown in the past 23 years?
Okay, number one is a bit of self-doubt. Will they find me funny? Will they listen? They don't know me, will they listen? How do I gain stage presence? All those things. I mean, to the glory of God, now they are in the past. Another thing was social capital. Who do I know? Who can I leverage? I want to have my own show. Who can I talk to that will not say, I don't know you. Go and bring 1 million. Go and bring 2 million. Those things. Then 3, which a lot of people might want to shy away from. Developing quality and evergreen materials. We call them materials. Jokes that you can tell and you'll be original. You'll be known for it that, okay, this is. I have one that people always tell me, can you crack this joke? And I'm like, why are you always particular about this one?
It's your hit track. Okay, give us this hit track.
Okay, so I served in Ibadan. I spent my NYC year and some 6 years after in Ibadan. And so, because I'm an observational person, there is this mode of transportation. The way we have Danfo in Lagos, we have Mikra in Ibadan. Now, these Mikras are very small, but as small as they are, they behave like rats. You know the way a small rat can destroy a full house? That's how these Mikras behave. So if you'd allow me speak Yoruba, all right. So Mikra guys, no pointer or the what we call trafficator, no horn, nothing. They drive as if they are the only ones on the road. So as they are going, if they caught you, you try to cut them, they now start to accuse you. And they were the first offenders. You hear something like, to the point that I saw a Mikra threatening a truck driver. Like, I'm going to destroy your truck. With what? And then I went to Ibadan after I left. And I took a Mikra. And I just told him, challenge. And I called challenge. The way he parked, I knew that I was going to have a challenge. Because the guy was like, I said, no problem. We started going.
So no change?
Yeah. Started going. And I like to keep it to myself when I'm not in my space. He just looked at me and said, Elegbon. Elegbon is like bros in Yoruba. Elegbon. I said, sir. He said, Okawuni Longwadri. And I looked and I saw a Benz. And I said, Benz. He said, Benzi. Baba Oko. I said, yes. He said, Salibet. I said, Kini. He said, Inla. Meaning he's going to overtake the Benz. Naturally, I should fear for myself and say, am I worried? I mean, I do with 1.2, 1.4 liter engine to a 3.5 V6. Are you? Out of nowhere, this curiosity just made me say, oh yeah.
Let's go.
And he said, okay. This guy moved from barely 40 kilometers per hour to like 60 and caught up with the Benz. But I guess maybe the driver was pressing his phone or something. Because we just saw this sudden speed. The guy just moved, vroom! And the guy looked and said, Elegba. What I go for me and whining, wow. As he developed baton, Emma Wona, Emma 4, Imba. He moved again, got close to the Benz. The Benz moves again. Boom! He now looked at me and said, Elegba, Motibe.
So I've passed my boundary.
Yeah, like in Saburu. He said, Abajo to say one, Baba Koni Benzi Twale. I thought that was the end. So the Benz swerved and turned into a filling station. And the Mikra took a detour and followed the man. I'm like, Tony Bitan Law, he said, Emma worry. That he wants to engage the driver. So the guy parked to buy fuel. This man came down, said, Elegbon. The guy was shocked like, he said, He said, you are on deadly speed. And I mean, for a Benz, the guy was just normal speed. And I said, Koyemi kilo shele, shemo bashin, shemo. Say, rara, ele basi, emi basi. Say, bo len lo ten sare bai. Say le na len lo. He say ile ologo len lo ki se le. I had to come down and trek the remaining of the journey. Because if I was to wait for that guy, there was no way in this life I would have left on time. So that's Ibadan guys for you. It was just a function of observation, not like it happened. But because of how they act, the confidence they have in that small ride, truck drivers don't have it.
Okay. Now, this leads me to this question of copyright in your industry.
There's more than copyright.
Okay.
There's copyleft, there's copy wrong, there's copyright, there's copy and paste. Some people will even perform. Somebody, like, there was a joke I used to crack about how CAC denomination sings and how prophetic their songs are and how what they sing about may happen in the course of the revival. There was a song like, Oluwa, Fogaye mi shofo, Akokoto, Fogaye mi shofo. And this woman with head tie was singing Fogaye mi shofo. You know, they always cut the songs gradually towards then. Fo. At that full point, her gele fold. So she shouted, Pastor, Pastor, kini? He said, gele mi ti fo. He said, Mamo, ogun aye lo fo yen. And it was actually that she bought. Guess what? I went for a show, and a guy ran to me and said, Baba, that your ogun aye mi shofo joke. I beg. I want me to crack him. No time where I crack him where people know they laugh. I was shocked. I should crack a joke you have cracked and cracked and cracked. So what kind of copy is this one? One of my guys said, this one is copy and paste. So that because if I hear the guy, I will hail him that, this guy, is your joke, not mine. So copyright is an issue. I mean, it's not restricted to the comedy space.
Of course.
Movies fight it. But I don't think till now, because our fathers in the game have tried. There's been physical altercations because of copyright.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There are senior men that will go backstage and beat, like, you know, sir, this be. You see my face for poster. Why you go stage, go crack my joke, and you know, say the you call me. And you know, get joke with me, I feel crack as revenge. So that's the problem. If we are too versatile and creative comics, you crack my joke, I can crack your joke in return. And say, yeah, we're even. But most guys who steal jokes don't have jokes. So when they perform your jokes, you are stranded. On the highway of performance, you are just there like, and you don't even know sometimes. Maybe by the time you got there, he had performed. So you are in and you are like, let me do my thing. So you get this microphone, but you say, they don't talk. You'll be like, no, I never talk. I just want to start. Say, no. Oh, person don't talk. Say, okay. So I don't know if you get a pass my neighbor generator. You know, say that generator, they always behave like a generator. The last guy talk. You could crack 4 of your own original jokes and you'll be met by, they don't talk. So I don't blame those who go backstage. I'm like, who cracked my generator? Who cracked my generator joke?
So that really happens? Beat each other backstage?
Who cracked my generator joke? Now this guy, I want to generate something, give him now, make him as they go. That's why some people find it difficult to, when they see a list, I'm like, this person they come, this person they come. I know they come because they are the owners of the jokes he parades. Wow. And they've beaten him once or twice. So affliction shall not arise a second time. Just say, you know what? I no go there available for this.
Oh my God.
It happens. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Oh my God. I don't even know where to begin with you, but I have to thank you for your time this morning, for being here and for cracking me up already. I want to believe that the people at home have also enjoyed themselves. Fred Otite, also known as Dr. Frick, is an ethical comedian, corporate compare, and several other things, and he was inducted into the Royal Court of His Majesty Oni Adeyeye Enito Oguwusi Ojaja II, and was awarded the Royal African Medal for his achievements in creative culture. Thank you so much for being here this morning, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
All right. And that is Sunrise this morning. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning. We hope we have been able to give you a good time. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and bye for now.